Hi there, my name's Jill. I'm from Festival of Japan and I want to show you some really simple watercolour doodling. So the first thing we're going to do is I've laid down my paper, different papers, any sort of paper you want. We use cotton rag paper, which is really nice. It's heavy, it's not going to buckle too much, but you can do this with any paper that you've got that's watercolour based. It's not going to work on cartridge paper, but you can do it on any watercolour paper. I've laid down a grid of just yellow tape. I use a non-tacky tape, so if you're going to use tape and it's too sticky, pop it onto your trousers to take a little bit of the glue off it, and that will peel off nice and easily. And I'm also going to show you a way to peel it off so it's not going to take the surface of your paper off there. You can use any paints that you've got. I use a particular brand of watercolour, but you can use any brand that you want. All else we need a paintbrush, 2 pots of water, and some metallic colours and a permanent pen. That's really important. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray a little bit of water, just using a really cheapo spray bottle. Just plain water, nothing fancy. I've pre-watered the colours because these are pans, so they're solid. About 10 minutes ago, sprayed it all with water, and that gets it going so it doesn't spoil your brush when you're trying to get the paint moving. Do that with the metallics as well, so try and do that with all of your colours. You can use tubes, any colour that you've got hold of. So we're going to lay down some colours. The finished result is going to be, I'm just going to bring this one in to show you. So the finished result is going to be this sort of thing here. So it's a metallic background, multicoloured, and a little bit of doodling, and it really is doodling. These flowers are nothing, they're not a particular flower, it's just a shape that I do. If you just want to do circles or squares, you can do whatever you want, the technique's going to be the same. First thing we need to do is lay down some background colours. I'm going to start with whatever muddy colours that I've got in my paint palette from last week. And this is the bit where you don't be scared of it. This I promise you, looks terrible to start with, but it will all work out. And your colours don't even need to match. So this is a great way to use up colours from your palette that you've got left over. The reason I put the water on there is it helps it spread out a little bit, so it gives it a bit more movement, but you can do it straight onto dry if you want to. And we're going to lay down as many colours as we can. We're going to fill near enough the whole thing, but it is nice if you leave the odd little bit of white showing through, like here. It just gives a nicer finish to your piece of work. If you know anything about watercolour, you'll know that it's just a pigment, and the pigment sits in a water suspension. So once the water's disappeared, the pigment then sits on the surface of your paper. So I'm just going to add some colours. They don't need to be, like I say, wonderful. Just whatever you've got. And that's it. That's your background done. Don't forget to wash your brush and never leave your brush in the water, because that's the worst thing you can do for bending your bristles. I'm just going to show you how to take this tape off. You would preferably let it dry for about 5 minutes, but we're just going to take this off to show you the technique. I've just wiped a little bit of colour, so I'm just going to go and put a bit more colour back in there. This paper that I'm using is cotton rag paper, so it's really hard wearing. You can go back a few times and keep putting colour into it. When you take off tape, it's really important that you don't pull it straight down, because that's when you can risk ripping the paper. So you always pull tape off at a 90-degree angle. So we're going to pull it that way, 90-degree angle, that way. And that's going to give you a nice edge. Don't worry if it bleeds out a little bit. Life's too short for perfect. So that gives you a really nice background. So we let that dry. Put that to one side. And this is what we've got here. So this is exactly the same as I did on that demonstration. I've chosen a few different colours. They're more of a toned set of colours, I suppose, here. So this is what we start with. What we need you to do now is use a little bit of imagination. So we're going to look into this and we're going to look for flower shapes on this one. So if I go into here, I can see that that bit there, that bit there, that bit there makes a flower. So work your way to the obvious ones first. So if I go there, you see the white bits almost act as centres. So you can make it bigger. Incorporate different colours and it gives you a really nice background. They're not specific flowers, that's the important thing. I'm not a botanist. I don't do botanical studies. We're doing shapes. So you do whatever shape makes you happy. So we'll just do a few more of those. What you're aiming to do is fill in that entire background with shapes. So you just go from shape to shape. It's just like when you're on the telephone and you're doodling. I always have a few of these in my bag, just the backgrounds, so that when I'm bored and I'm sitting, I just doodle onto them and then they're ready to paint when I get them home. So we're going to fill the entire thing in. When you've got it filled in, it starts to look like this next section here, this one here. But can you see here, what I've done is I've gone into some of the bigger ones and I've actually started, we'll do this one, just started to put some lines through like this. Trouble is it sets you off doodling and you want to doodle on everything. So, again, you're not trying to do them perfect. The stripes don't need to be equidistant. We're not looking for perfection. We're going to add some stripes into there. And you see, once you've added the stripes in, the colours start to work together. So for example, we're going to, if we do one here, and I pull in all of those different colours there that don't necessarily go together, as soon as I start to put stripes through them, it brings them all together. Do use a permanent pen, that's really important because we're going to be going close to it with more watercolour. So test your pen out first. Different nibs, you can do thick lines, thin lines, completely up to you. And we're going to come in, and you see how it makes them all work because they're in an enclosed area. So all of the colours will start to work together. So you're going to fill in the entire section like this. What we're going to do eventually is fill in the background with a metallic colour. So when you get close to the edges, we're going to try and separate areas off so we haven't got large expanses of colour. So do some half flowers when you get up to the edges. So, well actually there's a lovely flower there. So I'll do that one. And then when we come to this one, I need to join all of the background together so we haven't got grey areas of metallic. So I'll join that one to there and put that one to there. And if I put a smaller flower in there, it's amazing how fast it builds up. I've only then got to paint that bit in a metallic, that bit. I'll put another half one in there. So if you sit with a pen on the telephone doodling, this is absolutely ideal. Okay, so I think that area there is quite big, so I would put in a small flower. Don't overlap the flowers, they must just be touching each other. They can go underneath, absolutely fine, but don't sort of overlap the petals too much. Let's finish that one there. Like that. Once you've got the entire thing of it, this section here took probably about 40 minutes to doodle. And I'm sort of addicted to it, so I've always got another one on the go. I've added some leaves in here as well, which you can add in if you want to. You can do it all with leaves. I think we've got an example on the back with leaves. Once you've got to that stage, you're going to come in with your metallic colours. Now these can be anything. These can be acrylics, they can be, these are Japanese metallics. On one of the Hochanda shows recently, I used metallic eyeshadow, just adding that into the pigment paint, and that will give you a nice shiny look as well. So look at the colour and see which one you think is going to look the best. And I'm going to go for this mid copper here that I've got. So Give it a stir. Now this paint will be thicker than your watercolour. I'm going to go to a smaller brush. Actually, I might mix it up a bit and go for a different colour. Let's go for this red. And mix it up. And so easy. What we're going to do now is we're going to come in and you're just going to go around. That's a gorgeous colour. You're going to come and go around all of the edges. Once you've done the edges, it's like any other technique. Everything starts to look neat. You will have to go back to it 5 or 6 times to find the bits you've missed. So there's a tiny bit in there, tiny bit in there, tiny bit in there. And this is when it really starts to bring the colours out. So I'm going to bring the colour out there. I want to try and surround some so you can actually see what it looks like. I've always tried to be a loose painter, but I can't, I'm fiddly. I'd love to do big loose watercolours, but I don't think it's me. If you go over a line, it doesn't matter. One thing I actually want you to do is go over some of the lines. So if you have a look here, for example, and here, and here, if you do this with the same colour as the background, it will look as if the leaf has just started to break down. So it gives you another dimension. So it looks like the leaf has started to disintegrate. Okay, so I'm just going to paint a bit more down here. And a little bit more. And all you need to do when you've got all of this done, and it's going to look like this section here, is we just choose a different colour. So in this case I've chosen a silver. I'll just go on the centre of the flowers and it pulls everything together. If you want to do greetings cards, you would do a big sheet like this. Then you can split it into 6 pieces. So you've got 6 greetings cards. If you want to do it for pictures that need to be framed, putting that border around does make a really big difference. It saves you having 2 mounts on it. So you can just use the one mount. And this makes me really happy doing this because it's fiddly. But it doesn't matter if I make a mistake. And it's fast. So this is a lovely example, this flower here, of the colours that are in the background and how this will bring them out. So you've got a tiny bit in there, a bit in there, like that. If your paint starts to get thick, especially with the metallics, they do tend to, just get yourself some water in there. Don't worry that you've wet these down, then, because as I said, the pigment is held in the water, the pigments will just sink straight back down to the bottom at the end. It won't affect your paints at all, getting them all wet. And it's always wise to wet them all, because halfway through you might decide you want a different colour, but you don't want to spend 10 minutes waiting for it to get wet. So get them all wet together. And there we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come into this one, and that thing I've just been talking about, put a few bits of paint into there. And because it's the same colour as the background, it will look like the flower has started to break down, and you get some gorgeous shapes coming in like that. There we go. When that dries, that's going to be a nice metallic pink. It's an absolutely amazing colour. And I'll work the way along and finish all the colours off. You don't have to do random colours. I'm just going to move that one out of the way for a second. That's what we've got on the original one. See, it's got buckled a little bit. When that dries, just a hard book, and that will sink down. Don't try and put the pen on when it's damp. That's really important. This is one that we've got started, and I'll sit for hours and just design through these. And these are the ones that I take with me. I'll turn that over. These are the ones that I take with me in my notebook, and I will sit for hours and just draw. And you can see it's exactly the same flower I do nearly every time. I did experiment actually on this end one. I did think that looked a bit like a wood grain, so that was quite exciting to do. And then I'll go in with coppers and golds and things. And this one here is done even bigger. So this one is done, same method, laying a background down. This is on watercolour paper, so it's not on the same paper as this. And I just drew what looked like big roses on it. I mean, you will say it's a rose, it's not even really a rose. You can just do circles if you want to. Paint the background, and that's an ideal way to put the front of a book cover. Always remember you can do restricted colours as well. So gold and green, beautiful together. And I think the inspiration for this one was hydrangea, because it's quite hydrangea-y colours. So that's how easy it is to do a really fast doodle. Thanks for watching. Hope you find it as easy as I do, and hope you fall in love with it like I did.